Okay, so welcome to this first video. This is going to be a hypothetical scenario between the incumbent Republican President Donald Trump, and in this case, the Democratic challenger will be Senator Kamala Harris, the junior senator from California. So we're going to go through all 50 states and decide who I think is the most likely candidate to win. There are some states that I think will indeed flip from Republican to Democrat. We've seen indications of that in the 2018 midterms, but of course, with very little polling data on the 2018 election, the information is rather limited. But let's get started here on the West Coast in Washington State. Republicans have a fairly large presence over here in the eastern portion of the state, everywhere east of Seattle. But Jay Inslee, the governor, even not the most popular governor, and Hillary Clinton, not the most popular candidate, both won the state of Washington rather convincingly. So Washington should be a relatively easy win for Kamala Harris. Oregon is a little bit similar to Washington. Portland is the biggest liberal stronghold for the Democrats in this portion of the state, right up here in the northwestern portion. Kate Brown, the incumbent governor, did win re-election. The Republicans in the state of Oregon have been able to get their margins up like close within the 10% threshold a few times, and they typically get 40%. But again, Kamala Harris is so well known in this portion of the country, so she should be able to carry Oregon's 7 electoral votes. California, this is going to be one of the easiest states for her to win. This is, of course, her home state, the most populated state in the country, which, of course, is always going to be an advantage for Democrats. So Kamala Harris wins the state of California, probably rather convincingly. Nevada. Now, Nevada has been one of the states that has shifted to the left the most throughout the country. Democrats saw Nevada be one of the 7 states that they flipped the governorship for this past election cycle. Steve Sisolak winning the governorship there. And also, perhaps more importantly for the federal government, Jackie Rosen unseated Republican incumbent Senator Dean Heller. So the Democrats now have both Senate seats and the governorship there. And of course, from many years ago, Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, was from the state of Nevada. And again, Hillary Clinton winning the state is a very good sign for Democrats, given the fact that she was not the most popular candidate. And again, in this area of the country, Kamala Harris is very, very well liked and very well known. So Nevada should be hers for the taking. Now, Idaho is a very different story. Idaho may be considered one of, if not the most Republican state in the entire country. Down here in Boise, really the only area of any kind throughout the state that Democrats have a chance in. Boise actually has seen a little bit of a shift to the left in recent years, considering it is a college town and it has grown recently. But Idaho is still very comfortably in the Republicans' column, so I'm going to give that one and its 4 electoral votes to Donald Trump. Now, Utah is also pretty similar to Idaho. The margins are a little bit closer. It's not as much of a landslide. Mitt Romney was just elected senator from Utah. The Democrats did pick up a House seat right there in the center of the state. Mia Love, the incumbent Republican, did lose her re-election bid, but it still should be pretty comfortably Republican. It is the Mormon state after all. Now, in Arizona, there has been a pretty big demographic shift in recent years, which is going to greatly benefit the Democrats. Phoenix has been one of the sort of last remaining big urban areas of the country that has not gone dramatically to the left, even when it does vote Republican in some municipal races and in the governor's race for Doug Ducey. The margins are very, very close. Kirsten Sinema, who did just unseat John Kyle, who was using that seat essentially as a caretaker, she defeated Martha McSally in that race. She was able to carry the Phoenix area. So this should be a battleground state and one that Democrats can probably think about as a potential target. But for now, because there's still very little polling data, I'm going to give Arizona to the Republicans. Now, up here in Montana, this is one of those states that is a little hard to figure out at times. The Democrats have had success in statewide races up here, despite the fact that Montana is one of the least populated states in the country. John Tester, the Democratic senator, just won re-election in the state of Montana, which is pretty remarkable considering he also replaced a longtime Democratic senator, Max Baucus, who served in the Senate for 36 years. So that, combined with the fact that the Democrats also have the governorship right now in Montana, Democrat Steve Bullock is the governor. Does suggest that Democrats have an opportunity to win in the state of Montana. Barack Obama also came close there, but it did go for Donald Trump very, very convincingly. Hillary Clinton only carrying about 35% of the vote. So unless there's some polling data that suggests otherwise, Montana typically goes Republican in the general election, so I'm going to give that to Donald Trump. Now, Wyoming, you could probably consider Wyoming right up there with Idaho as the most Republican state in the entire country. Democrats do very, very poorly here. Mark Gordon was just elected governor there by a very, very convincing margins. Democrats typically don't even get into the 30s in the margins there. So unless something totally bizarre happens, Wyoming should be comfortable for the Republicans. Colorado is similar to Nevada in that it has seen a very dramatic shift to the left in recent years, perhaps a little slower than Nevada. Cory Gardner, the Republican senator, is sort of the last little bit of Republican politics, if you will, that they have there in the state. Of course, John Hickenlooper is a rather conservative Democrat serving as the governor. There have been some rumblings that he and John Kasich over here in Ohio could team up and, as sort of split ticket and pursue Donald Trump in the 2020 general election. But for now, Michael Bennet, the other senator in Colorado, is very popular there. Hillary Clinton did carry the state of Colorado. Denver has become an extremely liberal town, especially for this part of the country. So Colorado should go for Kamala Harris pretty easily. And again, in this part of the country, she's very, very well liked and very well known. So I'm going to give Colorado to the Democrats. New Mexico has become a thoroughly Democratic state. Tom Udall and Martin Heinrich, the two senators there, have won their elections very convincingly. This was also one of the 7 states where Democrats were able to pick up the governorship. It was recently held by a rather moderate Republican. And then in this area of the state, everything south of the NM that you see there, everything south in this area is one very large House district that the Democrats were able to pick up. So that, combined with the fact that Santa Fe is a liberal stronghold, this should be a rather easy win for the Democrats. Now we're into the plain states up here. North Dakota, Democrats have had some success up in North Dakota in the past. Kent Conrad and Heidi Heitkamp have served as senators from the state of North Dakota. Heidi Heitkamp was projected to lose by at least possibly by over 20 points. She did not. She was able to get 45% of the vote, but she did lose. North Dakota should be a Republican retention there in the 2020 election. South Dakota, pretty similar to North Dakota. The governor's race there was fairly close, but still shouldn't be too much of a problem for the Republicans. Again, these are very unpopulated areas, this part of the state, or this part of the country, rather. That always is going to benefit the Republican Party. Nebraska, Senator Ben Sasse is not the most popular senator there, but unless something bizarre happens, the Republicans should be able to hang on to that now. The only difference is, in this state, this is one of 2 states in the entire country, the other being Maine, that has a ranked voting feature to it, where they can apportion their electoral votes. Now, in the 2nd district, which is, of course, where Omaha is, that could be a potential target for Democrats. And again, given the unpopularity of Donald Trump, I'm actually going to give that one to the Democrats. So they could pick up 1 vote here out of the 5 electoral votes from the state of Nebraska. Again, Omaha is, probably the only area in the state where there's a big concentration of college-educated voters, Lincoln potentially being the other one. But I think given the unpopularity of Donald Trump in Nebraska, the margins are maybe a little bit closer than over here. Democrats can get up into the 40s in this area of the state. So I'm going to give Democrats 1 vote there in Nebraska. Now, Kansas was a bit of a wild card on election night in 2018. This one caught everybody by surprise. Chris Kobach, widely expected to win the governorship in Kansas, lost to Laura Kelly. That was a major, major surprise. Having said that, this is still a very reliably Republican state. Pat Roberts and Jerry Moore are both pretty popular senators, and 2 of the more conservative senators throughout the United States Senate. So unless there's some polling data closer to the election that we see that suggests something otherwise, Kansas should be rather comfortably Republican, and Donald Trump should carry its 6 electoral votes. Oklahoma, pretty similar to Kansas. Oklahoma City and Tulsa have become a little bit more blue in recent years, but Oklahoma is still pretty deeply red. Now Texas. Texas in recent election cycles has become a battleground state, and that it used to be one of those states that was, Democrats had a fairly large presence in, but it was still pretty comfortably red. It has shifted in recent years. The major urban areas, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, El Paso, and Dallas, all vote blue, and all vote blue rather convincingly. And now, if Kamala Harris were to pick Beto O'Rourke as a potential running mate, then Donald Trump might have himself a real problem in the state of Texas, and that is because of this area right here, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Dallas was the only area in the entire state where Beto O'Rourke carried a percentage of the vote that was equal to Hillary Clinton, which is to say, as unpopular as Hillary Clinton was, and as popular as Beto O'Rourke was, this area right here, the Dallas County, Fort Worth, all that entire area, Dallas and Tarrant County, they voted for Hillary at the same clip that they voted for Beto. So that is an indication that this is the most liberal area of the state, even though the margins in Austin, it being a college town, of course, maybe the margins in that area of the state are a little bit bigger in favor of Democrats, but Dallas probably considered its most liberal stronghold. Houston, of course, down here is a little bit more conservative, but Dallas should be a liberal stronghold for many years to come. A very young city, many young people, lots of college-educated people, and of course a very diverse city. Houston also being the most diverse city in the entire nation. But again, unless something in polling data suggests that Texas is really indeed up for grabs, I still would expect the Republicans to carry the state of Texas probably in the 53 to 47 range. Donald Trump is very unpopular in the state of Texas. Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, the two senators, are also very unpopular in Texas. But for the time being, we'll give Texas to the Republicans. Now, bordering Texas, Louisiana, Louisiana does have itself a Democratic governor right now, but that can probably be seen as an aberration. New Orleans and Baton Rouge and this area down here are really the only areas where there's a big concentration of African-American and college-educated voters. Shreveport up here to a lesser extent as well. But Steve Scalise, Bill Cassidy, John Kennedy all should be able to win their re-elections rather comfortably in 2020. John Kennedy, of course, winning his re-election in 2018. So this should not be too concerning for the Republicans. Same up here in Arkansas. Of course, since the 90s, Arkansas has seen a dramatic shift to the right. There's no real indication to suggest that that is a state up for grabs. Now, Missouri is a little bit different. St. Louis, right in here, bordering the state of Illinois, has become an extremely Democratic area. Democrats can pick up over 70% of the vote in statewide elections in this area of the state. And, of course, over here in the Kansas City area as well. But for now, again, unless there's some polling data that suggests otherwise, Claire McCaskill did just lose her re-election bid. So I'm going to give this to the Republicans. Again, though, this is a potential target for the Democrats, given that there are two major urban areas, Kansas City and St. Louis. But for now, Missouri is going to remain in the Republican column, and Donald Trump, as you see here, is the first over the century mark. Now, Iowa. Iowa is a bit of a wild card state because it's the king of split decisions. Barack Obama won the state of Iowa in 2008 and 2012. However, Donald Trump won it by around 10 points in 2016. The Republicans also won the governorship here, Kim Reynolds defeating Democrat Fred Hubbell in that race. Now, given all those factors, and of course Charles Grassley and Joni Ernst being the two senators from the state of Iowa, you would think that Iowa is a rather conservative stronghold. Having said that, of course, so Barack Obama, as I said, did win the state of Iowa both times, and Democrats, as of the 2018 midterms, have 3 of the 4 House seats in the state of Iowa. And of course, it is one of those first states, also with New Hampshire, that has its caucus and its primaries first. So Iowa, for now, I'm still going to give to the Republicans. However, if polling data suggests that this could be close, this is the state where I think Democrats have themselves a real opportunity, particularly also because Steve King, the Republican congressman from the state of Iowa, is extremely unpopular, and there could be a potential rebuke of him in the form of a general election. But for now, I'm still going to give Iowa to the Republicans. Now, Minnesota. This had Democrats, I think, a little concerned after the 2016 election. Minnesota, known to be a reliably Democratic state in the past. Hillary Clinton, however, only won it by around 3 points, which was a rather concerning sign for them, that this could be a state that is potentially shifting towards the right. However, Democrats absolutely crushed it in Minnesota in the 2018 midterms. They won 3 different statewide races in the state of Minnesota. They managed to elect Governor Tim Walz. He remains governor of the state of Minnesota. And then both Senate seats were up for grabs. Of course, Amy Klobuchar, a very, very popular senator, the senior senator from Minnesota, she won her re-election very easily. And then the other Senate race belonging to Tina Smith, who, of course, is filling in for the seat vacated by the resigning Al Franken. She also was able to win her re-election rather easily. So Minnesota should be a Democratic state for the time being, and it's 10 electoral votes. Now Kamala Harris is now just over the 100 vote mark. Again, you need 270 to be elected president. As of now, with this hypothetical scenario, Donald Trump holding a 13 vote lead. Now to Mississippi. Mississippi does have itself a very large African-American population, which going forward is going to help the Democrats. However, given the fact that we just haven't seen enough evidence to suggest that this is going to be a state that flips from Republican to Democrat, we're still going to give this to the Republicans for the time being. Mike Espy had himself a potential Alabama Senate scenario where he could unseat a senator who was deemed to be let's say, of the more racist variety, in Cindy Hyde-Smith, who made some inflammatory remarks that potentially could have given that seat to Mike Espy, the African-American Democrat, but even so, Cindy Hyde-Smith carrying the state of Mississippi by around 54 to 46. So we're going to still hand that one to the Republicans. Alabama, similar scenario. Democrats have been able to get themselves into the 40s in the state of Alabama. Probably the most urban area of any kind in the state of Alabama, down here in the Mobile area. Even that votes rather conservative. So, and one would expect Doug Jones, the Democratic senator who did defeat Roy Moore, he will probably lose his re-election in the state of Alabama. So for now, we're going to give that to the Republicans. Tennessee has become one of the most Republican states in this area of the country, if not the entire country as a whole. Democrats did very, very poorly in the state of Tennessee in the 2018 midterms. Phil Bredesen, one of the more popular Democrats in the entire state, was thoroughly defeated by Marsha Blackburn for that Senate seat that was vacated by outgoing Republican Bob Corker. So Tennessee should not be an issue for Donald Trump. He carries its 11 electoral votes. Now, Kentucky. Democrats have identified Kentucky as a potential target, given the fact that Mitch McConnell is extremely unpopular there. His approval numbers are very, very low. They're comparable to Donald Trump nationwide. However, in a potential general election, Lexington and Louisville are just not going to be enough for the Democrats to overtake this entire state. But perhaps this is a state that they could identify maybe to unseat Mitch McConnell, although I think even that is a long shot. Now, here in Illinois, in the Midwest region of the country, Illinois is probably the most thoroughly Democratic. Of course, Chicago up here, a major Democratic stronghold. Peoria also being a very liberal area for the Democrats. Republicans have had some success here in the state. Of course, they did manage to elect Senator Mark Kirk there, although he was quickly unseated by Tammy Duckworth. And they did have themselves a rather moderate Republican governor. However, J.B. Pritzker, the Democrat, has just flipped the state of Illinois back from Republican to Democrat in the gubernatorial race. So I'm going to give this one to Kamala Harris and its 20 electoral votes. Now, Indiana. Barack Obama did manage to win Indiana once, and Joe Donnelly, a Democrat, did get himself elected senator there. But given Mike Pence's presence there and the fact that Joe Donnelly did lose, suggesting that there's not really much of an indication that Indiana is rather disgusted with Donald Trump in any way, this should be Donald Trump's to lose here. 11 electoral votes in the state of Indiana. And now here in Wisconsin and Michigan. These were two of the most contested states in the 2016 general election. In the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the final vote margins combined in those three states was only 77,000 votes, which is just remarkable given how close it was in these three states altogether. Now, Democrats did get themselves a very, very good they had some very, very good indications that these could be in their favor in 2016. They won 2 statewide elections in each of these 3 states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So if we start in Wisconsin, Tony Evers, a Democrat, unseated the Republican incumbent governor Scott Walker. And Tammy Baldwin, the incumbent senator, won her reelection rather convincingly by a margin of about 55 to 45. So that is a sign that Wisconsin is very, very, very much in play for the Democrats. And given the fact that they managed to win both of those elections, especially the senatorial race, very comfortably, I'm actually going to give Wisconsin to the Democrats. So that is the first state that I have here that is flipped from Republican to Democrat. Of course, this one district here in the state of Nebraska. Now, Michigan also was very similar to Wisconsin in that it saw 2 statewide races go towards the Democrats. Now, of these 3 states that I keep mentioning, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, Michigan is the most Democratic leaning. Both Senators Gary Peters and Debbie Stabenow are both Democratic senators, and the Democrats were able to pick up the governorship here as well as Debbie Stabenow winning re-election there in the state of Michigan. Turnout in Detroit and Flint was rather low in the 2016 election. That probably will not be the case again this time. We've seen in the Midwestern states that the party that is not in power has its most liberal or conservative areas turn out very well for the party that is not in power. So I'm going to give Michigan to the Democrats. So that's already 26 electoral votes that the Democrats did not have. I'm going to give it to them in the states of Michigan and Wisconsin. Now in Ohio, Barack Obama won the state of Ohio 2 different times in 2008 and 2012. It was a little bit of a split decision here in the 2018 midterms after Donald Trump won it very, very convincingly in 2016. Down here, Cincinnati, given the fact that it is a major urban area, it does vote blue, however, not nearly as much as the Democrats needed to. Potentially, given the fact that there are a lot of people who leak in there from the more Republican areas of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Indiana. So Ohio, for now, I'm still going to give to the Republicans. Sherrod Brown, the Democratic senator, was able to win his reelection there, but Mike DeWine was elected governor from the state of Ohio. So for now, Ohio still, narrowly, but still comfortably leaning Republican. I'm going to give that to Donald Trump. Now let's go back to the south here. Florida, we all know that this is one of the most contested states in the entire country. We all know what happened there in 2000. Donald Trump won the state of Florida in a very close race over Hillary Clinton. And then the 2 midterm elections, statewide midterm elections that we saw here, Bill Nelson against former Governor Rick Scott and Andrew Gillum, and Ron DeSantis running to replace Rick Scott. Those were extremely close races. Bill Nelson, the incumbent Democrat, lost his Senate seat by 0.2 of a point, or about 10,000 votes. Andrew Gillum also lost his bid to become the Democratic governor from the state of Florida by about 30,000 votes. And that is a great sign for the Republicans, because Ron DeSantis, who has just been elected governor of Florida, is right up the alley of Donald Trump. They share policy views on just about everything. People have described DeSantis down here in this area of the country as a Trump stormtrooper. So that should suggest that Florida is rather comfortably in the Republicans' column. This should still be a very, very close election in 2020, but for now, unless polling data suggests otherwise, I'm going to give Florida and its 29 electoral votes to Donald Trump, and now he's got over 200, so he's only 60 votes away, but we still have a number of states to get to here. Georgia has been a pretty tough state for Democrats in the past. Of course, now in this area, the Atlanta area and its surrounding counties, Democrats have done extremely well, carrying over 70% of the vote in that area. And then you can also combine that with Savannah, Athens, some of the other urban areas of the state, and Democrats have been able to make this a rather close state. Stacey Abrams, in a very, very high-profile gubernatorial race, did manage to win 48% of the vote, but Brian Kemp, the Republican, still won it. So for now, I'm going to give Georgia to the Republicans. We're now seeing the vote tally 226 to 151. South Carolina, also comfortably Republican. Lindsey Graham is rather popular in the state of South Carolina. The gubernatorial race was fairly close. Henry McMaster winning 54 to 46. So I'm going to give another 9 votes to Donald Trump in the state of South Carolina. Now, North Carolina was a pretty close state. Hillary Clinton was able to get pretty close there, despite being rather unpopular. Of course, North Carolina has had itself a little bit of a split decision in recent years. The Democrats did get Roy Cooper, the Democrat elected governor here, and he is very popular. North Carolina is seeing an economic boom. And however, the two senators there, Richard Burr and Tom Tillis, are also pretty popular in their own right. Now, given the fact that Hillary Clinton was a very unpopular candidate and she did come close, North Carolina is a real target for Democrats, and they have been able to get other Democrats beside Roy Cooper elected there in the past. Kay Hagan and John Edwards, of course, have been elected senator there. But for now, again, unless polling data that we see comes out soon, North Carolina, I'm going to give it to Donald Trump. So he only needs 20 more votes, essentially, to win re-election in this hypothetical model. Now, Virginia. There are a lot of suburban and rural areas of Virginia that have given Republicans hope in the state of Virginia in the past. They've been able to get some of their candidates into the 45% range. However, Tim Kaine, Mark Warner, pretty popular in the state of Virginia, so I'm going to give that one and its 13 electoral votes to Kamala Harris. Now, West Virginia, Joe Manchin, the incumbent Democratic senator, a very, very moderate Democrat. He, of course, voted to confirm Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. The margin in the 2016 election was a complete landslide. Donald Trump won it by over 40 percentage points. I do not expect it to be that lopsided this time, but it's still a pretty comfortably Republican state. So another 5 votes for the Republicans in West Virginia. Now, as we get up here into the Northeast, Maryland does have itself a Republican governor, Larry Hogan, although he is one of the more moderate Republicans. Maryland right now is the richest state in the country. Baltimore, one of the most liberal cities in the entire nation. Democrats there in statewide races are able to carry Baltimore County by over 85%. So Baltimore and the rest of the state is very, very comfortably blue. I'm going to give this one to Kamala Harris. She's now up to 174 electoral votes. Delaware, pretty similar to Maryland, not much to discuss there. Delaware has comfortably been in the Democrats' column for many, many years. This is, of course, Joe Biden's state where he was elected senator from Delaware. So it's 3 electoral votes I'm also going to give to Kamala Harris. Now, New Jersey, Republicans have managed to make up ground there in the past. Of course, they got Chris Christie elected governor there. However, the Democrats have been able to get the governorship back there. Bob Menendez, a very unpopular Democratic senator who, of course, was under indictment at the time of his reelection, he still managed to win. Cory Booker was also facing reelection, and he won as well. So Democrats are pretty well off right now in New Jersey, and that's 14 electoral votes that I'm going to give to Kamala Harris. Now, Pennsylvania. We mentioned that earlier. Michigan and Wisconsin were 2 battleground states in which Democrats won 2 statewide elections in the senatorial and gubernatorial races. Same goes for Pennsylvania. Tom Wolf, the governor, won his reelection bid in Pennsylvania, and Bob Casey, the incumbent senator, he won reelection as well. Now, just like Baltimore, right up here in the Philadelphia area, probably one of the 3 or 4 most liberal cities in the entire United States. Democrats have given the votes there in statewide elections in the city of Philadelphia. Almost 90% of the vote goes blue there. Pittsburgh here, also a liberal stronghold. Not quite as pronounced as Philadelphia, but still very comfortably blue. I think Pennsylvania is going to go blue. This was a very close election in the state of Pennsylvania in 2016, and again, with a little bit more popular a candidate, turnout in Philadelphia was very low, although as we explained earlier, turnout in the states where the party that lost in the previous general election, they generally go pretty high. So I'm going to give Pennsylvania to the Democrats. So that's 3 pickups right there, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that I think are going to go towards Kamala Harris in this hypothetical scenario. Now, New York. Manhattan right there. Democrats typically win 90 or more percent of the vote in the city of New York City. Of course, the Bronx is the most liberal area in the entire United States. Kirsten Gillibrand and Andrew Cuomo have both won their elections, carrying the Bronx area by over 91% of the vote. That's the most lopsided area of the entire state and of the entire country, for that matter. And then, of course, Brooklyn, also extremely liberal, 86% of the vote being casted for Kirsten Gillibrand there. Queens, a similar story. And then, just to really put the Democrats over the top, Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, Buffalo are also comfortably Democratic areas. So this one I'm going to give to Kamala Harris, since she has now made up a lot of ground. It's now 240 to 255. And now up here, sort of in the New England area, Connecticut, Republicans have managed to mobilize a certain amount of Republican votes there. They nearly got the governorship there, which was pretty shocking on election night, although the Democrat was able to narrowly pull that one out. So I'm going to give this one in a statewide election, even though the insurance capital of the world there, Hartford, does spell a little bit of trouble at times for the Democrats. That should still go to Kamala Harris, and along with its 7 electoral votes. And then over here, Rhode Island, there's not much to discuss there. Its 4 electoral votes should be rather easy for Kamala Harris to win. Now, these 3 states right here have all had, and including Maine for that matter, have all had Republican governors in the past, including, at the moment, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont all have Republican governors. However, in Massachusetts, in its general elections, the city of Boston and its surrounding areas vote very, very blue in the general elections. Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey are 2 very popular senators from there. I'm giving it 11 electoral votes to Kamala Harris there. So now she has pulled ahead. She only needs 8 more votes to win. Vermont, very, very reliably Democratic state, even though the governor right now is a Republican, very moderate Republican. Patrick Leahy and Bernie Sanders have been serving there for a very long time. Vermont should not be a problem for the Democrats. Now, New Hampshire is a bit of a different story. New Hampshire nearly went for Donald Trump. It can be a pretty unnerving state for Democrats. Donald Trump lost the state of New Hampshire by only 0.3 of a point. Of course, Republicans have been able to get a senator actually elected in the state of New Hampshire, which is pretty remarkable. They also do currently have the governorship there. Maggie Hassan was able to unseat the Republican senator there and pick up that state for the Democrats. Now, Hillary Clinton did carry it, and again, this is a very conservative state for this area of the country, but given the fact that Hillary Clinton was able to win it, and Kamala Harris is going to be a much more popular candidate, I'm going to give this one to her, so she needs just 1 more vote, and of course we have 3 states that we haven't gotten to yet. Now, Maine. Democrats did pick up the governorship here as well. That was one of 7 states where they did it. Now, because in a hypothetical scenario here, there are only 3 states left, I'm actually just going to give this to Donald Trump, even though I do think that this one will go blue in that particular case. I think Donald Trump does have a little bit of a chance in the state of Maine, particularly in the northern areas. So let's give that one to him. Now, there are only 2 states left here, Alaska, and its 3 electoral votes. Lisa Murkowski, rather moderate Republican. She, of course, voted no on Justice Kavanaugh. This shouldn't be too concerning for the Republicans. I'm going to give that one to her, to Donald Trump, rather. And then Hawaii, a very, very liberal state, should not be an issue for Kamala Harris, and that's going to push her over the top to 273. Of course, the only one left is Washington, D.C., not much of an issue there for the Democrats. That's probably the most diverse and liberal city, most diverse apart from Houston in the entire country. So in this hypothetical model, I have Kamala Harris winning the election 276 to 262. Again, there are a few states that could go either way. It's still very possible that Donald Trump could win Michigan and Wisconsin again. Of course, I am being a little generous giving him the state of Maine. But for now, that's what we have, 276 to 262. So thanks for watching. We're going to do another video shortly. The next one should feature Joe Biden as the potential candidate.